All right. Welcome to the Governor's Foster Care Advisory Commission meeting. Looks like we've got um, partners here, the Foster Care Ombudsman. Jennifer Sorensen, is that a guest as well?
Yes.
Hi there. Yes, I'm a guest. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Hi,
Welcome.
Jennifer.
Hi there. Thanks, Ellen.
So we'll just do some quick introductions before we kick off the agenda. We've got to approve several meeting minutes that we've missed because we didn't have quorum. We have elections today, so woohoo. Um, we are going to discuss the report that was published by Disability Rights Oregon, and then we really want to dig into our recommendations. Where are they at? What do we do next? Who do we need to bring in? So that's our agenda for today. I'll kick off introductions and maybe just add in something you're most looking forward to this summer, just to give us a little bit about you. I'm Pamela Heisler, the current chair of the commission, and I work for Oregon Child Abuse Solutions in my day job, helping children's advocacy centers with training and technical assistance. Um, and what I'm looking to forward to this summer is we just booked, I don't know how there were still openings, and maybe this is going to be a terrible campground, but we just booked 4 days in a campground near the coast. So for July, late July, I think. So I am really looking forward to that. We didn't go at all last summer because my little was too little, but he's turning 2 today. So we're going to take him camping this summer. And I'll pick who's next. Let's see. Let's go to Alicia.
Thanks, Pamela. My name's Alicia Richard. I'm a person with lived experience. I'm the secretary still on this commission. And so you'll see me taking notes, so don't mind my face while I'm note taking. My day job is I work at the Parent Mentor Program, so I support mentors that are helping moms and dads navigate child welfare, and it's all through lived experience. What am I looking forward to? I think I'm just looking forward to being on the river. I love going to the river in the summer and just the sunny days, nice weather. I'll go to Donna.
Sorry, I went to the wrong place to unmute because my brain only works in Teams now that we have and then I don't use this enough. Hi everyone, I'm Donna Haney. I use she, her pronouns. I am the assistant manager in the foster care program, so I'm a guest on this meeting. Thank you for having me and allowing me to be here. I I'm just looking forward to weather that's sunny and nice and maybe getting on a plane and visiting my boys where they're at in the world. So I will go to Jesse.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Jesse Paul. I'm a person with lived experience. What I'm most looking forward to is probably swimming with my teenagers. My daughter's a water dog, and she loves the water, and so do my two dogs. So I'm looking forward to going swimming. He, him pronouns, and my day job is I'm a parent mentor with Morrison Child and Family Services, and uh, District 3. And
What a
I will,
newly appointed commissioner.
yeah. Yes. Um, I will pass it to Jennifer.
Hi there. Jennifer Sorensen, she, her pronouns. And I am a guest today. I'm so glad. I have been um, receiving and sharing wisdom with Ellen Bell for a while now about our work on various committees or advisories, and had never been able to actually come and see this group meet. So I'm happy to be doing that. I also am happy to be joining. As a support to Alexis, not that she needs it, but I am happy to see the work that she does. I'm the interim director of the Governor's Advocacy Office, and that is where the Foster Care Ombuds is housed. So happy to be with you for many reasons today. I forgot the next spot. I should say that for summer, Just a little bit less busy would be really nice. And how about Catherine goes next?
Hi there, I'm Catherine Stelzer, she, her pronouns, the education program coordinator. I'm a guest today. And summer is my birthday, so that's always fun. Being able to do a little bit more outside until it gets too overly hot, and then I'm a hermit inside again. But
Me too.
our summers are getting a little bit too hot for me. Um, how about Malik?
Malik Him, board member. In my day job, I oversee our East County services for New Revenues for Youth here in Multnomah County. What am I looking forward? Summer's always hectic. I mean, it's the end of the fiscal year, and then the fiscal year starts over, and then we kind of just start all over again. So it's always it's nonstop busy. But I'm excited for like all the events and programming that we're doing. That's youth are out of school, so we can focus on more like fun and recreation. So that's always a good time. But I also hate the heat, so I'm not looking forward to that too much. But yeah, I will pass it over to Kim.
I hopped on here a second late, so can somebody tell me what the question was that we're supposed to answer?
Oh, just what you're looking forward to this summer.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Pamela. Kim Keller, she, her pronouns. I'm the child permanency manager with child welfare. And contrary to what Catherine said, I like the weather during the summer. My 13-year-old and I are taking a trip to Atlanta. We've never been, so I'm looking forward to that. And I'm sorry, I don't know who has or hasn't gone because I hopped on late.
Very good. Let's go, Casey.
Hey everybody, apologies, I'm driving right now to my office, got out of court late, so I'll be on video in about 10 minutes. But Casey Dreher, he, him pronouns, commissioner. I just finished my first term on the commission and I'm starting my second term today. And in my day job, I am a juvenile dependency attorney here in Lane County, and I do have lived experience for my childhood. For my summer, I've always worked out of town during the summers that my child's been born, and this is going to be my first summer working in town. So I'm just hoping to be able to do some stuff with her outside that I've never really been able to do before, and maybe teach her to swim. And I will call on, I've just been listening, not seeing the video, but Alexis, have you gone?
Hey, morning. Hello, everyone. My name is Alexis Amarelli. I use she, her pronouns. I am a person with lived experience in the foster care systems in many states across the country. I'm very happy to be here. I am a guest in this space. I'm not a voting member. Professionally, I am the foster care ombudsman with the Governor's Advocacy Office. I'm just very grateful to share space with all of you. So thank you for allowing me to be here. This summer, one of my best friends, so we grew up in a really small town out in very, very rural Cave Junction area, Southern Oregon. And she is having a baby, and she's having a baby at the end of the summer, but she moved away to Maine. So at some point I have to make the trek across the country this summer. So I'm excited about it. I'm sorry, I don't know who has not gone yet.
So fun. Let's see. We can go to Matt.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Matt Kroll. Not sure my camera's not working, but I am a detective for the Boardman Police Department. I work on a federal drug task force. Kind of travel around all over the Pacific Northwest for my job. I'm a newly appointed commissioner. This is my first official meeting, and this summer I hope to be able to relax a little bit. I got 3 kids all in their own sports. So I'm playing 2 sports, and hopefully that will slow down in a couple weeks.
That's a
I
lot.
don't know who's
What
left.
sports do they play, Matt?
Baseball, softball, and track. So I got 2 boys playing baseball, and my daughter does softball and track.
Wow, that's a lot. Enjoy. Let's see. I think we've got Alex and Dean.
We could raise hands. I think Yeah, raise hands if you haven't.
Oh, and Alicia, I don't think has gone yet.
I haven't either.
In Beth Ellen. All right. Why don't we go with Ellen?
All
Oh.
right. Am I okay? Now I'm not muted now. Okay, great. Hi, I'm Ellen Bell, and I'm the coordinator for the commission. Happy to be here today. Really nice to see our new faces and she, her pronouns. What I'm looking forward to this summer, also not a big fan of the heat and having moved down here from Northern Oregon, down here to Southern Oregon, a little nervous about it, but it seems a little hotter down here. But I am closer to California, so I am excited about seeing my grandkids and my kids and spending more time with them this summer, and then just enjoying a new place and even if it is hot, hopefully it'll still rain a little bit. You know, I like that. I prefer the cold and the rain too. Probably like Catherine, but I think it'll be a good summer. And I will call on Alex.
Hi, my name is. Oh, sorry, I was muted. Hi, I'm Alex Island. I use she, her pronouns. I'm off camera today. I got back from a trip to Ireland last night and I'm jet lagged and a little bit of a mess. So sorry about that. I have personal experience in the child welfare system and have also worked as a permanency caseworker at ODHS. And right now I work for the Public Health Division in the Oregon Health Authority. What I'm looking forward to this summer is also the heat and going swimming. Thanks. I'm not sure who's left now.
Oh, yeah.
there we go.
So yeah, Dean Salazar, he, him, also not a fan of the heat. And I serve on the Portland Children's Levy Community Advisory Council as well, which, as I just put in the chat, we were able to, push for to recommend like a couple, I think, $2 million in the foster care programs that we fund, or a couple $100,000 more, can't remember which is really great. And I also serve on the Oregon Commission on Autism, which is unfortunately expiring as well. But beyond that, I'm happy to be here. And what I'm looking for, I just got back from Hawaii, actually, but for the sad part of that is I actually got sick on my first day after I arrived. And from basically that until the day before I had to leave sick. So that sucked. Yeah, but what I'm looking forward to this summer is staying inside and developing a strict schedule so that I can do as much work and help as much as I can. So, since helping others is what drives me. Thank you.
Love it. And I'm so sorry you got sick the whole time you were there. That's just the worst.
Yeah, that sucked.
Mhm.
Oh well. Well, me and my mother already recognize I need to go back there this winter, so
Yeah, we got to do a makeup trip. All right, did we get everybody? Anybody missed? Alicia, you went. Did you? Yeah, you went. Okay.
Alex
Okay.
has her hand up.
I think it might still be up from earlier.
Still be up. Okay.
Let's see. Oh, okay, I was checking the chat. All right, well, thank you all for the introductions and the fun things you're going to do this summer. It sounds like I'm in good company of not really loving the high heat. I'm like a 75 to 80 girl, and it gets beyond that, and I'm a wilted flower. I just melt and get sick, honestly. So I spend part of the summer inside too, which is so sad. So moving on in our agenda, we've got a couple of meeting minutes to approve. So commissioners, if you've had a chance, Ellen has attached them to the meeting invite as well. And we have March and April minutes that need to be reviewed and approved. And I think we can approve them as a package, right, Ellen? Yeah, someone wants to move to approve both. That is okay.
I'll
I
move to
move.
approve March and April meeting minutes.
All right, that was a Casey move to approve. Anyone second?
Second.
All right, second by Malik. All in favor of approving the March and April meeting minutes, say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. March and April meeting minutes approved. Make note in the notes. Thank you. So the next order of business is elections, and I would love for Casey to be back in his office before we get into those.
I'm like
Maybe
5 minutes away or less. I'm pretty close.
Okay. Maybe we could start with the secretary position. So the secretary position, if you don't know, is annual only. It doesn't have multiple years. Those positions are up after every year. Alicia's like, what? We appreciate you, Alicia. And so I know no one has put their name forward yet, but I did want to just put it out there if anyone is interested in taking notes at the meetings and submitting those to Ellen. It used to be that we had kind of a leadership team with the chair, vice chair, and the secretary, and we did the meetings to plan for our meetings and to plan for the retreat and all of that. But because of the new ethics laws, we can't have more than 2 commissioners together at a time unless it's a noted public meeting. So that person no longer has to participate at that level unless they really want to, and then we can, get those meetings posted. Yeah, meetings for meetings, exactly, Dean. So I just want to put it out there if anyone is interested in that position. Alicia has graciously kind of continued to take our notes as for sort of stand-in secretary, but I'm sure she'd be relieved to pass the torch if anyone wanted to raise their hand. I'll give you a moment to think about it. No pressure.
And I'd encourage our new commissioners too not to be shy to step forward. We'd love for anybody to do it.
Oh, Alexis, you're so sweet.
What did Alexis say?
Oh, she said, I'm not able to be a member, but I'm always happy to take notes.
Yeah, I'm happy to be your backup if you need it. I just can't be on the record for it.
Oh,
We appreciate you.
yes.
Very kind.
It's
All
not
right.
very scary. I just want to say that it seems like it's like well, it does feel kind of scary to like think, oh, all my notes are going to be on this piece of paper, people are going to be reading it. But I mean, honestly, I don't feel like there's a wrong way to do it. And you learn as you go. Like I've learned, who knows? I don't even know if mine are good or not. No idea. I've just been doing them.
They work. That's all we need.
You know what? And it's really good practice, and I feel like it's helped me professionally in a way. So if you're looking to grow, it's a good way to grow. And I'm always here to provide support too, because I'm still on the commission. Anybody
And
wants
I'm happy to help as well because
Yeah.
like with Alicia and I, we worked out our own system. Like if she's forgotten something, I fill in the blanks. Make sure we've got the guests separated from the people that are commissioners as we list them. And then so there's sort of checks and balances on the minutes, and they can always be changed. And the thing is, you just basically take minutes right from the agenda. So you're just sort of filling in extra things on the agenda. So it's not terribly difficult, but it's detail oriented and I've really appreciated working with Alicia, and I know I'll appreciate working with whoever else steps up.
All right. Well, that position will, I guess, remain with Alicia for a bit longer, with backup from Alexis and Ellen, of course. So the vice chair position, I'm just going to work backwards since.
Here comes Judge Jaco, though. She might have her hand in.
Yeah, that's true. She's not on today, so we'll have to follow up with her.
She is. No, she's joining right now.
Oh, good. Do we want to ask again? We can follow
Sure.
up with her.
I mean, no pressure. Right.
I'll just tell her she's been nominated since she wasn't here.
Hello, Judge Jaco. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi there. Since you weren't on, Megan, we have elected you as secretary. So congratulations. You know, voluntold. Just kidding. Welcome. Good to see you.
You too.
We were just getting started into elections and we finished finalizing notes from the last couple of meetings.
Your hair is very cute.
Oh, thank you. Chop chop. Summer. Let's see. So vice chair position.
Did we are we tabling secretary then till next time?
I think so. I think we'll just bring it up every time until someone wants to jump in and fill that role.
And meanwhile, Alicia's in Groundhog's Day. So a little bit.
Sorry, Alicia. So vice chair is a 2-year term, and Malik has graciously agreed to step into that role. I don't know, Malik, if you want to say anything. Your case.
Yeah, I'm just honored to ask to step into this role, and you know, excited to play a little bigger role in how we move through these things, and you know, different perspective. I think just I'm excited to be able to work with Casey a little bit more closely, and really excited for the growth of this commission, and I think that I'll bring some good perspective in how we move through things. So thank you.
Thanks, Malik. So can we get a motion to elect Malik Alexander as the vice chair of the Governor's Foster Care Commission for the next 2 years, 2-year term?
I'll make a motion to elect Malik.
All right, Jesse made a motion. Any second?
Seconded.
I heard Dean, heard a couple people there. Thank you. So all in favor of electing Malik as vice chair for the next 2-year term, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioners, I'm hearing your voices.
Aye.
Any opposed? Are there any abstentions? All right. Here. Malik, congratulations. Welcome to your new role. So excited for you. All right, so moving on to the chair role. That again is a 2-year term. It'd probably be better if the vice and chair rotated and weren't on the same 2-year term, but we'll think about that later. This is where we're at. And Casey Dreher has graciously accepted to step into that position, and we'll start a 2-year term starting this year. So Casey, is there anything you'd like to say?
Hi, everybody. Finally got on camera. Excuse me. Sorry. Got pop-ups coming here. So yes, as I was saying on my introduction, I'm starting my second 4-year term with the commission. Those of you that have been around know I'm pretty passionate about this work. I'm very active as a juvenile dependency attorney, and so I deal with a lot of the issues daily. But it's been a real privilege for me for the last 4 years to kind of see the trajectory of this commission and how we've really focused on children, really focused on outcomes, really kind of focused on a lot of issues that weren't really being looked at, I think, statewide. So I think this commission's done a lot of stuff. I love to talk about the commission. I love to brag about the commission. And as we move over into the next 4 years of my term, I'd love to serve as the chair of this commission. With that, I'd love your vote.
All right, would anyone like to make a motion for Casey Dreher to be the next chair of the commission for a 2-year term?
I'll move that we elect Casey Dreher as our next chair of the commission for 2 years.
Thanks, Judge Co. Is there a second?
A second.
Malik, second. All right, all in favor of electing Casey, say aye or raise your hand or virtual hand. 1, 2, 3.
Aye.
All right, that's everybody. Any opposed?
Aye.
Was there an aye? So it was a late aye. Any abstentions? All right, congratulations, Casey. Thank you to everyone stepping up into these new roles. I think Ellen and I will talk about kind of a transition meeting maybe to do a warm handoff, and you guys will be in the hot seat next meeting. So I'm really excited for you. And I just want to say thank you all for putting up with me for I don't know how many years it's been now. It's been a real honor to work with you all and continue to work on supporting recruitment and retention here on the commission and make sure that we've got just a wide variety of voices here sharing their experiences and influencing the system. So I've been in this work for a really long time, and um, every time I talk about the commission with a new person who's coming on, I'm like, you're going to love your fellow commissioners. They're the most passionate, energetic, inspiring people that you'll run into in this work. So I hope to continue to be in partnership with you all going forward. So thank you.
I just wanted to
Congratulations,
thank,
Pamela. You did
yeah,
a great job.
Thanks,
thank
Trish.
you. A big thank you to you. You've been great to work with. You've done really good work. So thanks.
Thanks, Ellen. And Ellen's wonderful to work with, to the new chair and vice chair, by the way. So you guys are going to have a great time. Definitely a different world having a staff person. Appreciate Ellen so, so much. And I think things will only get better as we move forward. So we get all of our T's crossed and our I's dotted. We'll continue to get stronger. So very appreciative. All righty. So the next discussion item is the Disability Rights Oregon report that I think I forwarded out to everyone, wanted you to have a copy of. That was based on the young man, I think last summer, who was in temporary lodging at a hotel and was able to kind of escape and complete suicide. So Disability Rights Oregon published this report. It's in the meeting, the meeting calendar invite. It's in there too. So if you don't have to scramble through emails to try and find it, just go straight to the meeting invite. And it's attached along with the minutes in the agenda. And I'm trying to pull it up now too. But I didn't want us to just skip over this getting published. We ran out of time last meeting to talk about it. But I think as commissioners, one, we need to know that when these reports come out, and need to really be cognizant of the recommendations that are made and see how they fit or don't fit with where we're headed and how they can integrate into recommendations. Because as the body kind of ongoing and overseeing child welfare, it's our job to see that those things are fixed and that they're monitored over time. So that's why I wanted to make sure that we had our hands on this and had a chance to look at it and discuss as a committee. And I'm still having trouble pulling it up. So hopefully you have it up. If you haven't had time to read it, I think we can talk through some of the key recommendations that are made so that everyone's on the same page. And I think Annette is here. We have a guest. Hi, Annette.
And I will,
Hi, Pam. Sorry.
Hi.
I will mention as we're jumping into this Disability Rights Oregon report that Annette was the attorney of the child who the report is about.
Yes. Thank you for joining us, Annette. And weird side note, I actually went to undergrad with Annette and did a lot with her. So it is such a small world of great people. So I don't know, Annette, is there anything you would like to say about this before we I was going to kind of jump into the key points and the recommendations and talk as a commission about where we go from here in supporting those recommendations, but I wanted to make sure you had a moment to share if there's anything you wanted to say.
I didn't know about this meeting until just this morning, so I haven't really had time to think about kind of the depth of what I want to share with this group about it. But I do want to say I appreciate the committee looking at the DRO report. I think it does a thorough job of highlighting kind of a number of things that went wrong that led to the outcome that it did. I also just want to let the board know that Jacob was a very, very special client of mine, and I felt his loss deeply, and forever will feel his loss deeply. So I just appreciate people willing to take the time to look into what we could do better to prevent things like this from happening in the future.
Thanks, Annette. That's really powerful. So any opening thoughts on the report, if you've had a chance to look through it? Questions for discussion?
I, excuse me. I would just add that I think, we've talked about it for several meetings now. It's no secret that I'm highly opposed to HB 3835. I feel like what we hear out of the governor's office is that is our only option to fix this. And I think in reality that if we have a more holistic view on it, if we're taking into account expert stakeholders like Disability Rights Oregon, like attorneys who have read the statutes or the proposed statutes, it gives us a lot more to think about than what we're just, getting from the governor's office. I appreciate that Disability Rights Oregon put in the time and effort to make special recommendations for the legislature and for DHS. And I think it's pretty apparent that, well, nobody would say that, this isn't a problem. The solutions that have been recommended, I think, take us in a different direction. And I think some of the recommendations from Disability Rights Oregon here shows us that we don't have to go backwards to solve this issue.
Easy. Yeah, and if you've been following the bill in this session, it's been heated. There has been a ton of amendments made. There's been separate bills proposed that take pieces of it, but get rid of some of the other pieces. I have no idea how it's going to land, but you're right. There's a lot of pressure from the governor's office to do this as a solution to different levels of care for our most vulnerable youth in the system. So it's a little bit hard. Sorry, two things at once. Anything else from anyone who's had a chance to look at it? So then what I would propose is you can go back and read the whole report when you have time, when you have a moment. Make sure that you're not in a dark place that day. It is a really difficult read and heartbreaking on so many levels. So just if you're having a bad day, it's not the time to bust this out and read it. So, but if you can take a look, I think it's really important that we as commissioners know the details. I think for our purposes today, if you can go to the recommendations, which start on looks like it's page 30 on the document, but 32 in the PDF. There starts a whole list of recommendations. And I think, let's see, we can go through them. There's a recommendation list for the legislature and a recommendation list for child welfare. But we'll start with the Oregon legislature. So it says they should fully fund agency requested budgets related to abuse and neglect investigations of DHS, Oregon Youth Authority, Department of Ed, and the Office of Developmental Disability Services. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay. I know some people are better reading than listening, which would be me. If you can see that, I can make it bigger. So recommendation 1. Recommendation 2, amend the statute to require CERT reviews be performed by an independent agency that is isolated from the political influence of state agency heads and executive branch leadership. So right now, CERTs, as far as I know, are handled inside child welfare. It's critical incident response team, I think is the full word for that. And that's when there's a serious child death known to this, either a child in or known to the foster care system. So a CERT, with what they call it, was performed after this young man died. And then that was part of the statements and reports that child welfare released to the public. So this is saying that we need those reviews to be done by an independent agency rather than internal. The next one is amend the statute to require OTIS investigations be performed by an independent agency that is isolated from the political influence of state agency heads and executive branch leadership. Consider housing this responsibility with a quasi-state agency or the Secretary of State. So I'm guessing that means all of OTIS would leave child welfare and go over to this other body, if I'm reading that right. Alexis, you got your hand up?
I have not been able to attend this meeting in a little while, so I don't know if there has already been a conversation about Senate Bill 1159. So it's a bill that died. Have you guys already talked about this by chance?
Yeah, I think early on
Okay.
it died. Yeah. So there was
Okay.
a bill to pull out
Yes.
the foster care ombudsman from DHS and pull it into its own Office of the Child Advocate. And then I think maybe Otis would be in there and it would be
Insert reviews.
yeah.
Yes. So there was a bill that was going to do some of this, but it did die. So I just was going to offer that.
Yeah. Thank you, Alexis. And that bill has come around probably every session for the last 5 sessions and it continues to die. And I'm not sure exactly why, if it's a funding issue to create a whole new body. I haven't followed it too closely to know what the details are.
Yeah, I'm learning that this process is definitely a very stressful thing that maybe I shouldn't get too wrapped up in, because I was like, I have to find another job here. I'm going to lose my job soon. So I definitely took it to heart, and then it just all of a sudden was gone. And I believe that this specific one had really so many amendments that it was really the sort of the legislative process, not necessarily that there wasn't backing behind it or acknowledgement that it's a need, but rather that the paperwork wasn't correct is really why this one did not go further.
Gotcha. Thanks for sharing. Anything else just on those first 3 recommendations? And what we'll do is we'll go through this first set of legislature and then talk about it. And then we'll go through the child welfare ones. Just we get a moment. So this next one, invest additional funds to develop therapeutic foster care placements, treatment foster care placements, and other intensive mental health services to serve children where they live instead of depending on congregate care settings in hotel rooms. I think this ties directly back to all the work we did. It's already in our recommendations. It's in the what was her name? Ellen, the woman who came in Multnomah County and did that review. Why am I blanking? You know what I'm talking about. You're on mute.
The Marty Byer.
Yes, Marty Byer report. There we go. So it's exactly ties into everything that folks have been saying for a while now, for a long while. Next one, set a statutory deadline for the eradication of temporary lodging in hotels and other short-term rentals. It has been discouraged and cut back for sure, but as we've seen, it has not been eliminated. Next one is increase rate reimbursements for therapeutic foster care placement, treatment foster care placements, and other intensive mental health services. Next, increase representation of youth, family, education advocates, foster care advocates, special education advocates, disability advocates, and dependency attorneys on the System of Care Advisory Council. And that's the group who put forth the bill that Casey was talking about. And then lastly, amend the statute to require the Department of Human Services follow Indian Child Welfare Act and create a private right of action against the state Department of Human Services and the Director of Child Welfare for any violations of this law. So that's the full legislative recommendations made by the report. And like I said, the funds to make sure no kids are in congregate care settings, eliminating temporary lodging, those are all part of the report that we submitted to the legislature already and part of the Marty Byer work. So that's kind of covered. We have not talked about reimbursement rates, I don't believe, for any of the placement settings. We have not talked about representation on SOCAC. And then these other 2 around fully funding the budgets and then amending CERT reviews to happen outside of the agency. So just wondering, what are your thoughts? Where does the commission go with this information?
I'm in support of it. I think it aligns with what we've been talking about and asking about, as you said, Pamela, for the last several years, especially as it came to the therapeutic foster homes. I think the overarching theme of this recommendation to the legislature is invest in Oregon and keep our kids here for treatment. There's nothing here saying we need to put more money to send more kids out of state, right? They're saying we need to do what we need to do to take care of Oregon's kids. And I appreciate that, and as it goes to SOCAC, I actually am not sure who's on SOCAC, but it's pretty clear that parents and children and attorneys, were not consulted about this coming into it. And I think that that's part of the reason why there's this, stop there. I appreciate this. I feel like, I don't know how long they put into this, but this is a much better report than 3835. I would support this.
It's easy.
This is Jesse here. I got a question about the SOCAC. Is it open to the public?
Good question. I mean, I believe they have public meetings because they are a state commission or board, right?
Right. Yeah, I just
Right.
did my onboarding and I would think they would have to be.
I think that they are statutorily created like we are.
Okay.
Yeah. Senate Bill
Yeah,
1 from
the
2019.
meetings are open to anyone.
Here we go. And they have open applications, it looks like. They've got their meeting minutes online, everything like we do.
I kind of have been wondering about SOCAC this whole time about how whoever decided to start the 2835 bill chose them to be the initiating body.
Yeah, that would be a good question if we had Anna Williams back.
We could probably go into their bylaws and kind of get a deeper dive about how it's constructed, I would imagine, correct?
Yeah,
Okay. That's all from me.
it's a pretty large committee. I've got it pulled up right now if you can see it. You've got the Department of Human Services is there, obviously. Department of DD, Youth Authority, Health Authority, ODE. We've got psychiatrist, psychologist, pediatric physician. Oh, Adam Rodakowski. So I'm just quickly scanning it. Organizations that advocate for youth. I'm not sure what organization that is. A family member, a youth. Yeah, so there's the membership. Looks like there's a couple youth, maybe a family member, maybe someone who helps advocate on behalf of youth and families.
It doesn't really look like they have a lot of lived experience of people in the child welfare system, though. But I can't see that.
Like a parent.
Yeah, or like,
Yeah,
there was somebody who's been through this.
like the closest family member, and then family member, foster of juvenile justice, and then a couple of youth here
is very important too.
Involved in juvenile justice or child welfare. So it looks like they have some representation, but again, how involved they were in the creation of the bill and the language and vetting it, I couldn't tell you. And I also think sometimes things at first glance, you're like, oh yeah, that sounds fine. That sounds reasonable. And then when you start hearing people dig into it, you're like, oh, actually, no. So I wonder if any of them have since come back and maybe aren't as supportive of the bill. So I think what we could do is write up a letter in support of these recommendations and submit it to the governor's office and to child welfare and the health authority and the youth authority, all the people that we have to do that to now, and call it out as an important piece and connect those dots with the Marty Beyer report and anything connected to the lawsuit as well, the class action lawsuit. Just tie it all together. Here's what we support. These are important to continue to follow up on.
Yeah, follow the consent decree.
Yep, exactly. So we can put those in there. Anything else on these? Any questions anyone has?
We didn't go through the DHS recommendations.
No, not yet. Ready to jump into those? Okay, let's see. So for child welfare, and is it helpful for me to read it, or y'all just want to give you like 3 minutes to read it yourselves?
When you're reading it, Pamela, it's nice to have something to follow along with.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is recommendations straight to child welfare from the committee or from the Disability Rights Oregon. Recruit, develop, and fund therapeutic foster care placements, treatment foster care placements, and other intensive mental health services to serve children where they live instead of depending on congregate care settings and hotel rooms. Again, something we're very, very, very supportive. Next one, develop an emergency plan to eradicate the use of hotels and other temporary lodging and publish the timeline, steps, and plan for the elimination of this practice. The next one, hire a cohort of DHS staff who exclusively care for children in hotels and other temp lodging instead of relying on volunteers who work overtime from child welfare and self-sufficiency teams to staff these placements. This cohort should be provided intensive specialized training and supervision appropriate to supervising vulnerable children in these settings. Next one, develop and publish trainings, standards, policies, and procedures for the care of children in hotels and other temp lodging, including supervision of children and youth in psychiatric crisis. The next, develop and publish clear decision-making processes for when children and youth will be placed into a hotel or other temp lodging until such practice is eradicated. Next, develop and publish procedures for a single system to share information about the condition and well-being of children and youth in hotels and other temporary lodging so that all staff are fully informed of the support plan until temporary lodging is eradicated. So a lot of these pieces are what to do right now in the immediate sense, and then a couple to go after. The next one, revisit all DHS training related to children in foster care to create meaningful trauma-informed training, hold all DHS personnel accountable for trauma-informed practices, and take disciplinary action against DHS personnel who traumatize children and youth. Next one, train all DHS staff on the powers of dependency attorneys, procedures for resolving disputes with dependency attorneys, and legal processes for seeking necessary care and treatment through the court. Next, develop a more timely and specific policy and protocol for investing a child's death while in the custody of the department. And lastly, follow the Indian Child Welfare Act to respect tribal sovereignty. So a lot of them tie back into the legislative asks, but there are pieces here around training development for staff. I can't quite get them all on the same screen at once. Thoughts, reactions?
Yeah, I got one. So my first thought and reaction is to the DHS trainings. So are they stating or recommending that these trainings will be what DHS holds them accountable to the trauma-informed practices?
I think they're saying to retrain everyone in trauma-informed practices and then have a way to hold people accountable who aren't operating in those ways.
Yeah, I'd be more interested on like how's that accountability piece being implemented. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, that's always a tough one.
Right.
So
I
we can do all
can't
the training.
imagine that they would be treating it any more seriously than they do now if they're looking at changing the way they investigate abuse and care to make it easier for foster parents to say foster parents. But yeah, if there was an accountability piece to acting in a trauma-informed manner, if there was a way to do that, that would make sense.
Yeah, some sort of accountability procedure or random checks, what that would look like. So there's some interesting things in these recommendations, beside, recruit, develop these additional levels of care, that is in our recommendations. Stop using hotels and temp lodging, that's in the recommendations. This piece around in the meantime, hiring DHS staff who exclusively care for children in hotels and other temp lodging. And so it's a cohort of people where they are like extra trained. They understand working with vulnerable children, any kind of psychiatric crisis. These are the go-to people. I think that's a pretty powerful recommendation. I think we have seen in this report and many others that it's often folks working double shifts or just picking up extra hours for overtime. And it's a random who volunteers or gets the short stick, not people who are really dedicated and highly trained to be doing that work. So I think
Right.
that
And then
recommendation
they
really
could sleep
resonates.
during the day so they could stay awake at night.
Yeah, exactly. There's all sorts of things that those people need that are different, I think, than a general everyday worker.
Hi, I have worked temp lodging before and can say that that something very traumatic and terrible happened. And um the caseworker was still the decision maker despite not being there and seeing what was going on, which is what set off the teen. And it was just they tried to commit suicide. It was a lot. Um, and it was not safe for anyone there. And it was because of the caseworker who refused to listen to the three of us who were there having a conversation about what was going on, like in real time in front of us. And yeah, again, that's like a thing of how do we hold that accountable? How if there is someone who's specially trained in that, do they still need to like report to the caseworker to okay things? Stuff like that is what is popping up for me about that.
Alex, I really appreciate that. And the fact that you have the firsthand experience just kind of blows me away. We don't want folks to be going through that. I highlighted this section. I was going to add a note here, but I can't seem to do it in the way I have my document open. So maybe Alicia, in the notes, could you call out this piece around who's the decision maker when a child is in temp lodging? Is it the, current assigned caseworker to the case, or is it those workers who are on site with the child? Because that's not called out anywhere in this report. Just so we can follow up on that.
I would just add that, again, I think that these are common sense recommendations. I don't know if Annette wants to jump in here, but it's my understanding that what happened in this report, could have been preventable if there was a better trained caseworker there. And so, knowing when you could step in and, minimize the situation that was happening. It's my understanding he was holding a rope and nobody, stepped in there. So I don't know if Annette wants to jump on there, but this is a spot where I think it's pretty clear. We do need better training for people that are doing the temp housing.
Yeah, what I would say just from what I saw in this particular instance was, I guess, 2 points. First, I think it is so important that that Otis be housed outside of DHS. I mean, the idea that what happened in this case was investigated and there wasn't any neglect found on the part of the agency is pretty baffling. The second point is that the people that were with Jacob in the hotel that night, I think one of them was a case aide who had maybe only done an online training, as mentioned in the Otis report or in the DRO report. But this was a kid that everybody knew was actively suicidal, and one of the caseworkers was actually sleeping. And I was told at some point after all of this happened that people liked having the one who was awake to do a TL shift with because they knew that they could sleep because he always stayed awake. I don't think it's mentioned in the report, but it's also interesting that that gentleman actually did another TL shift later that next night, even after this happened. So whatever decisions are being made about who is taking these shifts with who and how they're trained definitely needs to be looked at very critically. And I agree with the report recommendations that whoever takes on those roles, especially for kids that are known to be struggling with suicidal behavior or thoughts, that they even get a higher level of supervision than just a kid that maybe doesn't have a place to be for that night, that doesn't have those same concerns.
Thanks, Annette. And thank you for being here. I know it's not easy. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right.
Just was a quick time check because we've
I see we've got a few minutes left on this discussion.
and we didn't get to the 2024, but I know we have Lacey here, and seems like we may have April joining us, but I don't see her in the waiting room right now. Also, but before we get to Lacey, we have Catherine Stelzer to talk about the work groups and what's happening with the education work group. So just in our time check, we only have a half an hour left.
Yeah. Thanks, Ellen. All right. So it sounds like there's no, instant reaction that any of these are recommendations that we wouldn't stand behind. Everyone seems in agreement. A lot of this fits with recommendations we've already made and have been made by different folks looking at the system. So I think what we'll need to do is figure out a draft for a letter to weigh in and make sure the governor's office and Chalfer know that we support these recommendations as they stand. Does that reflect what everyone's thinking?
Except maybe the SOCAC one, because I think that's going to take a legislative change.
Oh, hold on. Why did that do that? Except the one around who is on SOCAC?
Yeah.
I mean, we could still say we support it if we do. And then some of these are legislative recommendations anyway that are going to need bills. So as long as we're all in agreement that family and youth voice should be on SOCAC.
Yeah, it looks like they have some of it already, but
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's not enough people on there to influence any decision, though, in terms of voting power, I would think. And obviously, like when you look at the majority of SOCAC, it's people that are going to benefit directly from being shielded from liability of child abuse. And so it's a real self-serving commission, is the way that I see it.
I second that.
Thank you, guys. Well, we'll follow up on these then. And maybe Ellen and Casey, we talk about next steps around a draft letter. All right, any final thoughts before we close out this discussion? Like I said, it's really worth reading through if you have the time. Really illuminates kind of the whole story and the timeline of what happened and where each of these recommendations came from. So if you do get a chance, would definitely recommend that you read through the whole thing.
And if I could make one more plug real quick here, since Annette's with us, because a lot of this, the Disability Rights Oregon 3835, it's all kind of relating to the same thing. And I would say that, part of what I've been arguing is this just takes us backwards. And offline, if anybody wants to reach out to Annette, if she'd be willing, she was instrumental in advocating for many of the things that banned what 3835 is trying to revert back to. And so if you're interested in hearing kind of more of the backstory on that, I'm sure Annette would be willing to provide it. She just put her email in there. And then the other thing, just as a side plug, not related, I just want to say I really appreciate Annette as well. I would not be doing dependency work if it was not for Annette. She's the one that got me into this work and actually introduced me to that you could even have an attorney in the dependency world. So if it wasn't for her, I would not be here.
Thank you so much. That's really sweet.
Right. We'll close out this discussion for now. We're on limited time. And thank you, Annette, for joining. You're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to hop off and get back to all the amazing work you're doing. But
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I am going to hop off, but thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you. So did you say, Ellen, that Catherine had a few things to say before we transfer over to Lacey?
Yes, she's on our list. We didn't get to the discussion on the other recommendations, which we might want to swing back to before we have a chance. But yeah, Catherine's here to follow up on the work groups, the educational outcomes from the recommendations.
Great. Lacey, how are you with time? Should we go with Catherine first, or is it better do you have to hop off right away?
I mean, Catherine's time is as important as mine is. I do have a hard stop at 1 o'clock.
I can be flexible. So Lacey, if you want to go first, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, y'all. I'm Lacey Andreessen. I use she, her pronouns. I'm one of the deputy directors for child welfare. A couple of things just to update you all on. I think many of you have seen the email. Our current director, April Flint Gerner, is transitioning to a new position. She's leaving us. The timeline for her departure is mid-June. She's going to Casey Family Programs to be a program director there. It's kind of a dream job for her. She also has a lot of things going on personally, and these are big, hard jobs. So it's time she's done her time and she's transitioning on. We anticipate an announcement about an interim director later this week. So you all will be hearing from who that person will be.
Is it going to be you? Is it going to be you, Lacey?
It is not going to be me. I'm going to continue doing exactly what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm supposed to tell you that or not, but
I don't know.
Not me.
You're
I was interested in the conversation y'all were just having about capacity, and I have some updates for you specific to capacity. Our use of temporary lodging is down. From my assessment, that is because child welfare has continued to expand capacity. We've increased the number of beds at Looking Glass, and we are very close to 2 homes opening, one for DD youth, one for non-DD youth, that are staffing 3 to 1, like a 1-child residential. It's one of the recommendations that came out of Dr. Byers' report. The hard thing about that is that that's the only expansion that's happening, and those placements can only be accessed when children are in our care and custody. So we continue to see children being pushed into foster care because their parents can't access the levels of care and the placements that they need, which is always problemsome for me. Because as much as I love to believe that kids do really well when they're in foster care and they get better and stay better, that's not always the case, as you all know. But they're not in hotels and they are in appropriate settings. So we're going to continue to work with the system partners around their increase in capacity so that kids can get what they need without having to have their parents give custody to the state. Along that line, probably the most concerning trend that we're seeing is a lack of secure inpatient placements. We call them secure child inpatient. Sometimes you'll hear it referred to as SCIP, and secure adolescent inpatient, often referred to as SAPE. Those are the highest levels of care for children in this state. They're considered hospital levels of care. And we have on any given day 10 to 15 children waiting for those levels of care and waiting for a really long time. And based on the discussion that you all just had about hotels and temporary lodging, that's probably the last place that a child who needs that kind of care belongs. But it is where we see them waiting often. Our hope is to start some urgent conversation with OHA specific to those high levels of care, because we just see the outcomes for kids who are waiting for that level of care as a high priority and not something that child welfare should be serving in hotels. Some other things happening. We are within about a month of knowing what measures are going to be in the collaborative agreement that came about as a result of the Wyatt class action. The areas of practice that those cover, we've talked about this before, I think. Maltreatment in care, re-abuse, re-entry, timely case plans, timely physical, dental, and mental health assessments, and then quality placements and services. So I think, Pamela, you said it, there's a pretty significant crossover in all of these conversations. Beyond, what we have now we have the report from DRO, we have Dr. Byers' report, we have the collaborative agreement. So lots happening in terms of getting children to the places that they need safely. And my hope is that all of those things really help push the system in this state to increase capacity. We've talked for a while about the fact that Oregon has, depending on who you ask, 49th or 50th worst access to children's behavioral health. And I recently saw that we are also in the top 2 states in terms of a percentage of kids who are adjudicated and sent to OIA. And I think that's a pretty sad statement of affairs about what's happening for young people in Oregon right now. So I'm just hoping that the system pressure continues, because you'll all likely recall that Dr. Byer did a whole assessment and said that there is nothing else child welfare can be doing to end the use of temporary lodging. The system in this state has got to improve and change for access. We are going to be submitting our annual report that's due to the federal government in June. I would be happy to share that with you all if you'd like to see it.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're also participating, the Human Services Group is working on a transformation initiative for all of ODHS. Some of those efforts will be combining child welfare and self-sufficiency into one agency instead of 2. We're also going to build out a service delivery arm of child welfare and self-sufficiency. I think to some of the comments that you were all making about accountability, I think that we're going to return to a structure that we used to have that's different than what we have now. And I do think that there's some inherent opportunity for accountability within that. And then put administration of services of like facilities, fleet, all of those kind of things will go into a different arm. So that's happening. And then as a subset of that, we child welfare working with that team around some initiatives for child safety, looking at some of our assessment practice, all kinds of things. So that's just more to come. I'll be coming back to talk with you all about what we decide to work on. I think that's, I guess we're moving through the legislative cycle, coming close to the end of this very long session. And fiscally, we're kind of walking through what feels like a dark time or a very unknown time, because the forecast was very strong. We've heard some direction from the federal government about what may change financially. So now we've got a forecast that's very dire. And I think our legislature just has this really hard job of trying to figure out how to fund human services when we may see some significant cuts. So kind of unknown today, but lots more to come. Those are my updates.
Thank you, Lacey.
Yep.
Any questions for Lacey?
I do. At the end of February, when you gave us updates, Lacey, I had told you some issues that I had when I was working, and you asked me to reach out to you personally to set up some time to talk, and I did that, and I just hadn't heard back. So I was hoping that was something that
Alex, I apologize. I asked my assistant to get some time on the calendar. Did that happen? That
Okay.
obviously did not happen because we haven't talked. So let me check in with her and I'll make sure we get that calendared.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have a question. You might not be able to answer this, but I know if we're going to be getting a new person filling April's role, is everything going to kind of keep going in the same direction that we've been going?
For as far as I know, Alicia, yeah, we're going to continue on. I think engaging with you all around this idea of combining in child welfare and self-sufficiency is going to be really interesting. That's going to continue. We have the vision for transformation. That's going to continue. So yes, I anticipate us continuing on in the same direction.
That's helpful. I guess the one question I have, is there any major policy bill in the legislature that is coming through that we need to be aware of? Obviously, we've been tracking the big one.
Yep.
With the levels of care, but anything else?
I think that is the major one. There has been some conversation about potentially changing the definition of what's a critical incident. And there may be some hearings about that this week. I think we're too far in the process to do that with, and from my opinion, kind of transparency with the community and letting people weigh in. So it may be that waits until the next long session. But yeah, 3835 is the big one this time.
Thank you. All right, if there are no other questions for Lacey, then I will pass over to Catherine.
Thanks, you all. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, Lacey.
Hello, I'm Catherine Stelzer, the Education Program Coordinator, and we've talked over the course of the last, 6 months or so, doing an education-focused work group. And Ellen and I met last week, and I thought it might just be, let me see if I can share. I tried to, let's see. Oh gosh, I too am, Teams is always funny. Let's see. All right.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, good. So I thought what I would do, since we seem to have more new people, is go over the goals that were in the governor's report. And I think what this education work group is going to do is to focus in and do some more action-oriented work on these goals. I think some of these goals are quite big, and we're probably not going to be able to solve all the problems, but I think there are some really pointed ways that we can get more specific and work on some of these issues. So I just want to go through them very, very quickly so the new folks are familiar, because they may also want to join this work group. So One of the goals we had was around expanding the definition of foster care as it relates to school of origin for kids in foster care. We've actually gotten some updated guidance from the feds that might lead us in a direction of partially implementing this with some legislative changes. And so I think this work group would be really good at looking at those pieces. We talked about identifying and funding educational points of contact at the state and local child welfare level. I think it seems pretty obvious right now we're not getting an infusion of new funding coming in the near future. But with the reorganization of work that Lacey was talking about, we may have some opportunities to think about how that could be done maybe in a different capacity as we set up our system where self-sufficiency and child welfare is working closer together. Creating and implementing a state level education outcome plan for foster youth. I think this is a really great goal that this work group can work to get more specific around. And then the other piece of that was to have the leadership from the governor's office, ODE and ODHS, to implement the recommendations. And so I think if we can think about what are some of the recommendations that we would like to see, and then help presenting that to the bigger leadership, especially with a new child welfare director coming on board, I think that is a very doable goal. I would like to get as specific as we possibly can, and with aiming high, because I think this is really important for our students in foster care. And then there was a piece around requiring the local education agency to notify ODHS branch office and ODHS notifying children's attorneys prior to disciplinary meetings. I think this is also something we can work on. I think we could certainly add this to a recommendation in my annual education guidance that goes out to caseworkers. But I think it would be great to have ODE on board. And then Casey at one point was interested in a request for a tool to help juvenile court officers, attorneys, caseworkers assess when the best time is for children to make school changes around that school of origin, best interest finding. And some of that came from the OKID data that was shared around kids that are doing school changes midterm have poor outcomes. I think that's an awesome idea as well. And I would like to invite somebody from JSIP to also be on this group, and then Marley from ODE. So that was kind of my thinking. We can certainly adjust it as folks see fit. I think what Ellen and I talked about is if we could identify who wants to be on the group, then we can start sending out some calendaring ideas of when to schedule meetings. I think what we can do, we know we wanted to have a goal starting in June, which is a couple weeks away. So it might be towards the end of June. I know a lot of folks go on summer vacations. We can record the meeting. So if you're not able to make a meeting, you can watch it at another time. And go from there. So I just wanted to bring that back to the group. And if you have interest in being on that committee, then please let Ellen know, and we will start organizing folks and get this work going. And if there's any other goal that you would like to add to that work, I'm happy to do that. So.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm really excited about that work.
Yeah, I'm excited too. It's nice to have, I think the more people behind it, the better, and we can really make some differences moving forward. And so I'm very happy to have folks to work with around this.
Yeah, I appreciate you as well, Catherine, working on that. I know it's not part of the federal standards we're looking at when we're, evaluating the agency, but from my opinion, if we were number one in the nation in, foster youth graduating high school, I'd say screw the federal standards. We're killing it here in Oregon, right? So this is awesome work. I love it, and I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
And I would volunteer for that committee. I'm really excited to do that work.
I was just going to ask if there's a deadline. Do we want to put Pamela and Casey a deadline on the people letting me know about the committee? Or Catherine, do you have a date you'd like to hear from folks?
No, I think it's really up to you all, but I would like to start doing some planning around it because I know, time is going to move quickly. And so maybe if we could, what is today, the 19th, maybe by the end of the month, and then we can start surveying folks around dates and times to meet.
And would this be a public meeting? So we're not limited on the number of commissioners that are involved with it?
We would probably have to, if we end up with more than a couple commissioners, and then the folks that Catherine puts forward, we will have to notice it. We can notice it on our webpage and say that this is an ad hoc educational group meeting, and that should work fine. And we can even send it out to our mailing list as well. But just depending on how many commissioners want to be on that.
I'd like to throw my hat into it as well, and I also sit on the JSIP meeting with Casey.
Good.
Oh, nice.
If you all, whoever is interested, could please just email me today, or let me know, or email me within this week. That'd be great, and we can start gathering that.
Absolutely.
And then we'll kind of know what we need to do in terms of noticing the meetings.
Well, thank you for having me here today, and I appreciate you all.
Yeah, thanks, Catherine. Thanks for helping us continue that work forward too. I think it felt like low-hanging fruit of all of our recommendations to actually get together and make this plan for a statewide strategy for improving, education outcomes. So I'm glad that we're going to make that happen. What else do we have on the agenda that is there anything else that I missed, Ellen?
The recommendations that Catherine pulled up, the rest of those that kind of tie a little bit to the prior discussion, and some of the things that Lacey was saying as well. So we were going to talk about next steps with that, I think is what you had suggested.
Yeah, I wonder how we could move forward with that, because we do want to write something up about these recommendations from the DRO report, and it's going to reflect back to our recommendations we submitted. So maybe that's our next step. I guess I would love to know who would be interested in helping draft that letter to the governor's office and child welfare. Just we've read this report, we've discussed it as a commission, we express our full support for the whole list of recommendations. They tie to our previous recommendations, A, B, C, D, that kind of thing.
If I could make a suggestion, what we've done in the past, of course, was the executive committee working on that. So that might be a good new first step, first new task.
Malik and Casey, you have been volunteered.
I don't mind getting you a draft and send it over to you, Pamela, Ellen, and Casey, and then you guys can edit and make adjustments as sees fit. I just need a deadline, and I can get that to you guys.
Yeah, and Malik, maybe we can talk a little bit about this, but you can't send it to all of us. It's like if we're going to be, this is something we're going to be voting on.
Gotcha.
But
just send it to
what we could do is we can
you.
If you have ideas and you want to email them to me, and I can start gathering some ideas, and then when we have the meeting or the draft can come out of however we want to do that. We have various ways we've tried to do this so that we're very in compliance with our public meeting law.
Okay, sounds good. I know we're meeting tomorrow too with Casey,
Correct.
so I think that might be a good place to kind of start the conversation and we can kind of go from there, if that sounds good.
Wonderful. Thank you, Malik, for stepping up on that. And yeah, for anyone who's new or doesn't remember, the new ethics laws that came out this year, we cannot even email about any recommendations if there's more than 2 people in the email, because then it's a meeting. So that's why it gets a little funky when we're trying to draft something. But Ellen has helped us work through those barriers. So
And for the new folks, I was realizing when Catherine was showing the recommendations that maybe not everybody has seen the recommendations. So if you haven't, I'm happy to resend. I'll send them to anybody. I'll send them actually probably to Alex and let's see, 'cause she would have been, and
Jesse
then I'll
and
send it to
Matt.
Jesse and Matt. And that way everybody will have them. They're also on the webpage. So just to let you know that if you can't find some, you can find it on the webpage.
All right, just got a couple hands up, Donna and Jesse.
I just wanted to throw out, since we seem to have a couple minutes, for folks who might be interested in the administrative rulemaking processes, I don't know, a couple meetings ago, presented on the new relative certification pathway. So and I know, Jesse, you volunteered for what I'm about to talk about, so I appreciate that very much. But our part of that new process is that we have to have administrative roles. So this is all about how foster parents, both regular Gen App foster parents and relative caregivers, will be certified. The state, basically law, administrative rules around certifying in Oregon, what we call certifying those folks. And we were having a rule advisory committee, and part of that process really is getting outside DHS input. That is the whole point of a RAC. So if anybody's interested, please either reach out to Ellen or myself. Casey, I threw your name in there because I was confident that you were going to get appointed in this meeting to be the chair. So I just didn't want to, it wasn't an assumption on my part that you're interested at all in reviewing them or anything. I just wanted, as the chair of the commission, that the information go to you that we're having this RAC. And then Jesse, you had volunteered. So you should be, if you haven't already, the invites don't come from me, they come from our policy unit. And they'll have all the information on there. So that's all. If anyone else is interested, whether you can come to the actual RAC or not, or just have some general feedback about if you have any in your work, any feedback on the standards for certification of either general foster parents, because we're actually reviewing that rule as well, and the brand new rule around certification of relatives to the children placed. Thank you for letting me pop in for that time period.
Thanks, Donna. That's a great opportunity. Does this mean that foster or relatives will no longer go through the same process as a Gen App for certification?
Yes, there will be some differences. The big difference is safety, background checks, environmental safety checks. Those have not changed. Training, contact are different. The amount of time contact a certifier has to have in the home is increased with relatives. So anyway, I don't want to take time, but yes, it's a whole different rule set, a different home study process. So any interest in that subject matter, just let me know. Thank you so much.
Right. Jesse.
Okay, I'm off mute. Yes, Donna, thank you. I've got the invite and accepted it. Thank you for that opportunity. And Ellen, is it possible to get Catherine's, she had pulled up and shared on her screen some information about the work group and some of the focus areas. Could you see if I can get that sent to me so I can kind of review it, digest it, and yes.
I think that was the from our recommendations. So once I send those out, when you read the recommendations of the commission to the governor's office from last year, is that the ones you're talking about that she pulled up, or?
No, just the areas of focus that we would be talking about in her work group. I believe that's what it was.
I think that was from the last recommendations on the last of the educational recommendations. The one she
Jesse,
just
was that the 1 through 4?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our
That's-
recommendations from
yeah.
last year.
Okay.
So when Ellen sent that, it's I think the very last page.
It's the last
Those
page, but I'll send it. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'll send it out to everybody that's new. That way you have them. And that's what I said also. And for anybody else, it can be found on the webpage. We have those things in there along with things like our bylaws and all those kind of things as well. So, but yeah, I'll make sure I send it out to you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, look at us. We're going to wrap up on time. Round of applause. Any final thoughts for the good of the order before we close out for the day? All right. We'll have a couple of minutes back in your day and we will see you next month. Or Casey will see you next month leading the meeting. And I'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.